Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to Wrestler Weekly Presents. I'm your host, Scottie Richardson. Thank you for having me as a guest in your living room or on your phone at work when you're supposed to be working and you're watching Wrestler Weekly Presents. Maybe catching it on the replay, or maybe you just got your alert because you are a subscriber of Wrestler Weekly on YouTube and you got that email link. Clicked it, and here you are. Wrestler Weekly presents another episode. And wow, how do you top last week? Mike Mooneyham, just an honor to have that guy on the show. Can you believe it? But here we are, Season 3, another great episode. And I've got my Moon Knight t-shirt on, and I've got the first appearance. That's right, Nick. The first appearance of Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night, issue number 32. One of my all-time favorite Marvel characters, right behind Daredevil. I've got Daredevil number 1. Here's my 5. I know we're wrestling fans, but you know me, I collect all kinds of stuff. So I'm throwing a bone out to my comic book friends, and here we are, my top 5. Let's go with number 5, Venom. Number 4 on Scottie's list, got to go Doctor Strange. And then how about number 3? Who's number 3? Well, it's an easy one for me, Black Panther. I was on Black Panther way before all these Disney movies. And then number 2, you're looking at it, Moon Knight. And then Daredevil, number 1. That's Scottie's top 5. But you came to watch some wrestling, and so we're going to get to it. This episode is another Scottie solo episode, and it's one of those things where I have been teasing this episode since season 1. Literally, when season 1 wrapped, and we did the season finale, and Reggie and I did it, it was a little controversial because we have our own championship line. If you haven't seen that, go back on YouTube and watch those. Watch that episode, season finale, and then there's a bonus that's out there too. But right after that, I'll never forget it. I was in Myrtle Beach, and I laid out a bunch of things on the bed to take a photo of posters. And I was teasing season 2. Season 2 was going to be programs and posters. But you know how things happen, how things get going, and how things start to roll, and all of a sudden, you run out of time. You're trying to get all 15 episodes in, you've got guests coming and going, and we just missed it. So then, and by the way, I teased it all through season 2. It just never happened. And here we are, season 3, and bam. We are ready. I'm finally have got it formatted for you. I am going to showcase for you my signed posters. And I'm talking PWI posters in the centerfolds, also some Mid-Atlantic Mag stuff. And got one Japanese poster that's signed recently. And then a couple from George's George Napolitano's Wrestling All-Stars that he took those photos. But I do want to give you some information about in the random episode that you saw a couple episodes ago. One, again, Zeus, thanks for your care. I really appreciate the comments and messages and tweets and those kinds of things about my well-being. So certainly thank you for that on the pepper situation. But I was fine, always in control, never had an issue. So just had a little heartburn, needed to burp. But that's because we just had a fantastic dinner right before I ate that pepper. But let's go back to the random episode. There were 2 signed Ric Flair photos. The first one ever, and then the latest one that I had gotten signed in person. But if you haven't seen that episode, check that out. But those two, I can now tell you that I've had conversations with Bill after. He's credited for the first photo, my first ever autograph in the nice robe, the green robe, the big gold. But then the second photo, which is the last Ric Flair I have gotten in person, George Napolitano, he is the one that took that photo. So I reached out to George. He said, yes, I can't tell you where, but I did take that photo. And so I told George and Bill, I'm going to send these off to you so you guys can sign them since you took the photo. It would be nice to have your signature next to Ric Flair's. So I'm really looking forward to that. And so let's talk about, before we jump into the first poster, which I'll go ahead and tell you who it is. It's number 1 Paul Jones. We're going to kick off the show with that. I can get it up there for you while I'm talking. There we go, number 1. And I'm going to go through some of these PWIs. If you remember, PWI had the close-up, but then also on the back. Remember, we had the 4 spots there for favorite maneuver, toughest opponent, greatest match, and then most hated opponent. So I'm going to go through those as well. I'm going to spend some time. I've got 10 posters, and then I've got 12 total, but actually, no, might be more than that. Who knows? It might be 13. But more the merrier, as you know. But I've got 2 posters I've already framed. They're on the wall, but I took the frame off the wall. I did not want to take them out of the frame, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a disclaimer. There's going to be some glare, so just keep that in mind. But when I'll tweet out the photos, and they're probably out there actually. I think Mike has tweeted them out before, and then they'll be you'll see it better. The glare will be gone, but we're going to take a look at that as well. Don't forget where to find us if you want t-shirts and support the show. It does make a difference when you support the show. ProWrestlingTees.com/Wrestler Weekly. You can find Wrestler Weekly logo t-shirts as well as the book t-shirt, Family Bacon Wrestling, established in 1972. And also you can find us at Twitter, on Twitter and at Twitter at Wrestler Weekly, also Facebook and Instagram. And then obviously here Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. on YouTube. And so let's jump into it. Here we are, number 1 Paul Jones. Says Coca-Cola, General Motors, Elvis, and the Yankees. My goodness, I like just about all of that. Now, I would replace Pepsi with Coke, but that's just me. What do they all have in common? Each claims to be number 1. Professional wrestling is no different. Contenders for a number 1 spot may be regional, national, or worldwide. To Paul Jones, being first is a state of mind. While in Florida, Paul became the champion. The fans and promoters recognized his talent, and Paul got a taste of the championship life. It's like dropping a stone in a pool of water and seeing the ripples spread. Each ripple means another win and another step closer to the belt, quote unquote, Paul Jones. Now only one thing separates Paul from the top, and that is the championship that belongs to Terry Funk. As you can see from the pictures on these pages, Paul wrestles only the best. It seems to be only a matter of time before the whole world will be calling Paul Jones number 1. Here's a couple photos. Some pretty good intimate photos. Paul Jones and Wahoo. Jones with the U.S. title. And then a few on the back here. But this Paul Jones, and I sent a tweet out a couple weeks ago that talked about, was Larry Zbyszko a poor man's Paul Jones? Now, I did that a little bit by design because I do love Larry Zbyszko. And I mean, let's think about it. Bruno, great heel turn. I mean, that feud. And then obviously Larry went on to win the world championship title with the AWA. Excuse me, my throat. I don't know what's going on. Maybe seasonal allergies here. But I did that by design because little spurring some conversation. Sometimes Paul Jones and Larry Zbyszko, two guys that a lot of times get forgotten. But my goodness, Paul Jones, how good. We've talked about it so many times here on Wrestler Weekly Presents. But TV champion in the Mid-Atlantic area, Mid-Atlantic champion, United States champion, Mid-Atlantic tag team champions, the world tag team champion. So Paul did it all. And here is the poster. Now, I don't know how well these are going to stay on the stand during this episode. So what I'm going to do is just hold them up for you. I'm going to play a little Vanna White tonight and just show you. But I met Paul Jones at NWA Legends Fan Fest in Charlotte, and was just, he was a great guy. He was very nice, very polite. Talked to me a little bit. Even afterwards, we ran into each other there in the hall and talked to him, had a good conversation. So this one says, to Scottie, best wishes, Paul Jones. And love that jacket as well. But that's the number one Paul Jones. All right. Next, we got two Wrestling All-Stars. And this one is signed to a gym. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, you see this box here? I'm going to see if I can get this in the camera. I may not be able to, but I'll try. This is an entire, if you can see that, this is a heavy box of wrestling magazines from the 70s up to 1980. And so these are things I'm sorting. So, so I got the box. I left the box in the shop because I want to show you that. I am working on something huge, something that has never been done before, something that you've never seen before, and that is really all I can tell you at this time. It's going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be unbelievable, which you know is my buzzword, and it's going to be one of those things that will change the game when it comes to wrestling magazines. So stay tuned to everything Wrestler Weekly, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you get your Wrestler Weekly fix. And it's going to be unbelievable, I will tell you again. But this one is to Jim, but I had to buy it. This one, I'll tell you which ones I got in person and which ones I bought just separate from another party. But this one was in person. This one to Jim, but I had to get it because this person has passed on, unfortunately. It says, to Jim, my best to you, Nick Bockwinkel. Now, eventually, I'm going to frame these and put them on the wall, but I've had them out in this, well, this is my Moon Knight, but I thought I had my sheet up here, but I've had these in an envelope in plastic for over a year now, wanting to show you, the fans, but we finally are here, and so here is Nick Bockwinkel, the inmate belt, as you know, the AWA World's Heavyweight title. And so Nick Bockwinkel, Jim, I appreciate you selling me this one. And now this one is, so these Wrestling All-Stars, the posters were right on the inside cover. And so we'll throw that up there for you. And that's Dirty Dick Slater and Ric Flair. So while you're looking at that, I'm going to take a little sip of water from my Go Tigers mug. Sorry for that dead air. But here we go. Now this one, another George spectacular photo. This one is the wrestling scene with Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, and the Great Kabuki. But right inside, let me see if I can hold it. I'll do this in a second, but here we go. Bam, look at this one. Harley Race. I got this one, if you remember, in maybe season 1, I talked about friends of mine who they were going to St. Louis to visit their parents and then in-laws. And so I said, wait a minute, you're going to St. Louis? Well, so I worked the deal, talked to Harley and his people, and this was a couple years ago, and Harley was fantastic, and he signed this one for me. So this is a from me to Harley, back to me deal. And this is a great one. Now, these posters are a little bit shorter than a PWI poster, just if you're wondering about that, if you did not know that. So in framing them, you have to kind of put that into perspective. And this shows you just the difference in these two photos. So they're right at the same height because these were George's publication, Napolitano. And so, I mean, how awesome would that be with these framed? And typically, I don't like to purchase things that aren't to me. But in this case with Nick Bockwinkel, that is, for me, that's an exception to the rule. So put that one up there. All right, what do we got next here? Now, this one, I'm sure you've seen before. This is from the Terry Funk, the very first Les Thatcher NWA magazine, which we're going to get into in another episode. So I don't want to open that can of worms in that Pandora's box on this episode, but we will get to that. I've shown it a few times on Wrestler Weekly Presents, but inside of that is a poster of Terry Funk. And I'll tell you something interesting, because when I met Terry Funk in Asheboro, North Carolina, 2 or 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago now, it was a high school gymnasium, and I did some things. And my good buddy, a shout out to my good friend Bobby Yates, because Bobby was the promoter there, and he really helped me out, worked with me. And then Tony Hunter, another shout out. Tony was promoting Terry in his booth, basically. And so worked out a little situation there. But so Terry signed a lot of things for me, my NWA 10 pounds of gold belt. He signed a few magazines, signed some stuff for Reggie as well. And I talked about that on the random episode. But, and I got back home, and I was talking to Reggie on the phone, and he was like, man, how great is that poster? And I was like, what poster? He's like, what do you mean? The poster wait a minute. The poster in the middle of the NWA magazine. He's like, you didn't get the poster signed? And I was like, no, I got the cover signed. What poster? Man, it was a swing and a miss. It was a total whiff on my part. And man, was I upset. Ticked off, and you can go to another level. But luckily, last year, some friends of mine were going to an event, and Terry was there, and I said, would you please take my poster and get it signed? And here it is. To Scottie, Terry Funk. What a great poster. Got the robe, got the 10 pounds of gold. I mean, the 10 pounds of gold, that's fresh. I mean, that's as fresh as they come. In mid-70s, personalized. And so thank you, Terry, for helping me out and giving me another at-bat. Let's put it that way. And this time, I knocked in 2 runs. So here it is, to Scottie, Terry Funk, another great one. And these are going to be just, I can't wait to put them up. Here's a little Gulf Coast wrestling for you on the backside. All right, now let's get it. Well, I got one more. Before we jump into PWI, now here's a Japanese mag, Ricky Steamboat on the cover, Harley Race, Mil Mascaras. But inside the cover, and Japanese magazines with these posters, I'm just going to show you a couple. Now there's 3 posters in this one, and maybe we'll save that for another episode, and I'll just go through some posters in these Japanese magazines for fans that have not seen them. But there are 3 posters. 2 are not signed. One is signed. Here is one that is not signed. Bob Backlund. Look how young Bob is. And I may try to get that one signed. He will be at WrestleCade in November. And here is Bruiser Brody, another great poster. That one is not signed, but here is one that is signed. Got to work with this guy last year. This is Manny Fernandez, the Raging Bull. If you can see this. And that says to Scottie, Raging Bull. And there he is. He is he's a crazy guy, I'll tell you that. You don't want to cross him. You want to get on Manny's good side, and luckily I was on his good side. But he is a great wrestler, and you learn from the Funks, and the rest is history. His tag team with Rick Rude, still one of the best ever. Coming down the aisle, We Will Rock You, and all that. So there's that. Now let's jump into PWI. We're checking the clock here. We're doing good. Ric Flair. This is a great one. Favorite maneuver, the figure four leg lock. That's easy. Toughest opponent. How about this one? Toughest opponent, Ric Flair. You never would guess this. He says, I was shocked, but I had a recent match with someone, and he can really put up a tough battle. Surprisingly, he was able to counter a lot of my roughest moves and come out with as much energy as ever. He really earned my respect in that match. Who do you think it is? Did you say, are you thinking this guy? I don't think you are. Mr. Wrestling number 2? Toughest opponent for Ric Flair, Mr. Wrestling. Greatest match. He says, without a doubt, my greatest match was against, he says, Blimpy Rhodes. When I won the NWA title, I felt so good after that match. I was so satisfied. It was a feeling unlike anything in this sport I've ever experienced. I'm proud to be the NWA champion, and I intend to keep the title for a long time. Most hated opponent, Greg Valentine. So here's the poster. This is right after winning the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, 10 pounds of gold, signed. This was signed. I saw Ric Flair for this one in Georgia at a big-time wrestling event. Maybe 3 years ago. But it was small-town Georgia. I still can never remember the name. I want to say Elma, who knows? But it was small-town Georgia, and Ric Flair signed a lot of things. For me and Reggie got a lot of things signed in a high school gymnasium, and it was great to be there with Ric Flair, and Fifi was there as well. So that is Ric Flair. We'll put that one up for you to take a gander at. Now this one, I'm checking my phone here. I was waiting a call to come in, but it's not coming. And so what do we have? We've got Ken Patera. I met Ken at the WrestleCon back in 2017 down in Orlando. Greatest match, Ken Patera, the day I won the Missouri title. A second time. From that wimp, Jack Briscoe. Said I even remember the exact day, October 23rd, 1981. What a match. Toughest opponent, he says Hulk Hogan. He's a big guy and he's strong, almost as strong as I am. Favorite maneuver, you know this one, the swinging neck breaker. He says I can't count the number of guys I've placed in the hospital with that move. And then most hated opponent, he says Pedro Morales. You know, their battles for the IC title. And here it is. Ken Patera, the IC title. And that was the original. Remember Pat Patterson, Pedro, Ken Patera, some great names that have come along in that early going of that IC run. Back in the random episode, we talked about Greg Valentine when he had the green version, but Don Morocco. I mean, there was such great wrestlers that were here in that era. Ken Patera in that era. Now, there you go. Now, I'm going to skip along because we're running close on time, but I do have a Stan Hansen PWI poster, and I had a cutout of his original, if you can see that, his actual name. Now, that was on a program. Now, that program, wow, I mean, that was an unbelievable program because that program produced a Jack Briscoe autograph, a Dino Bravo autograph, and then here was Stan Hansen. Just real quick, if you want to know, favorite maneuver, the lariat, obviously, greatest match when he broke Sammartino's neck. Most hated, Ivan Koloff, and toughest opponent was Dusty Rhodes. All right, let's get to this one. That same, and I've talked about this before, but that same WrestleCon walked in, there was no warning at all that Bob Backlund was going to be at this thing, because had he been there, I would have spent a lot of money on Bob Backlund, because for me, Harley Race, Nick Bockwinkel, Bob Backlund, those were the three champs that I looked at inside wrestling every single week, every single month, every single season, whatever it was, whatever mag, I could count on those three guys being champs. And if not, then it was a really good surprise, like a Dusty or Bob or, somebody that slipped in there, Saruta, and won a world title. But here is, I had a magazine. I was getting it signed for Ken Patera and I'm trying to remember who, Tommy Rich and Ken Patera on the covers. But inside of that, luckily for me, was this PWI poster, and I got Bob Backlund to sign it. And there it is, the championship title. There's the championship belt. And, as a kid, being able to get the magazines, the posters in color, the covers in color, anytime a belt was involved, you got to see it a little bit better than just in the black and white photos. So Bob Backlund, favorite hold, Spine Crusher. Most hated opponent, Greg Valentine. Greatest match, obviously, February 20, 1978. You remember that date. Madison Square Garden, he defeats Superstar Billy Graham for the WWF title. And then toughest opponent is Ken Patera. And as you know, 720wrestling.com, you can read the article about Bob Backlund versus Ken Patera. It's out there. Check that out as well as my other articles. PWI, here we go. This guy, favorite maneuver was his version, he says, of the pile driver. Most hated opponent, Ric Flair. Greatest match is when he beat Ric Flair for the 7th time. And then toughest opponent, he says, is Terry Funk. This is the poster, my friends, that Dave Milliken on our episode 3. This is the poster. Get you close up there. But this is the poster that Dave Milliken credits for allowing him to see the full-length title when he was trying to make his own version of this belt, the NWA 10 pounds of gold. And this is as classic as it comes. And the fact, and I know some of you fans, my friends out there, obviously Mike in our family, Reggie in our family, but guys that, Maddie and Bobby and Freddie and Tom and Bill, I mean, you guys know who you are. I mean, Nick and Myron and just our guys, our guys, Jeff and Mike, Parker. I mean, there's so many guys that follow us, Jay-Z. You guys know who you are, Jim and Duke. I could go on and on and on. If I didn't mention you, I do apologize. But here is as classic as they come. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, why in the world has that thing not been framed already? Well, I didn't want to frame it because I wanted to show you first. But I will tell you, it will be on the wall as soon as we finish this show. Okay, so all right, I got one PWI mag, and then I'm going to close the show with a big bang with what I just pulled off the wall. And I'll give you a little teaser just to help you out here. But this thing is huge. And so I'll give you a little teaser there. All right, we're back. The last PWI, this is Ric Flair, greatest match. Let's see if anything's changed. This is what I like to do as a kid too. I like to go back and see what may have changed. So let's see what may have changed. Favorite maneuver, figure 4, that's never going to change. Toughest opponent, remember, was Mr. Wrestling number 2. It's not Mr. Wrestling number 2 at this point. He says toughest opponent was Harley Race. Most hated opponent, remember, it was Greg Valentine. Not anymore. It is now Dusty Rhodes. Greatest match. Before, greatest match was when he won the NWA World title, September of 1981. But now his greatest match was November 24th, 1983. That's right, everybody say it together. Starrcade 83, when he defeats Harley Race in the Greensboro Coliseum. And here it is. Signed by Ric Flair. This was signed literally right after he signed this poster. Let me get it up for you. There it is. So, 2 awesome posters with the 10 pounds of gold after winning. That was number 1 and number 2 of his long-standing reign. All right, fans, we are now to the conclusion. We are going to end the show. I'm going to put these down so we can get this stuff and see what we've got here. All right, so I will tell you, the first poster was signed in Dorton Arena a few years ago. The second poster was signed my great friend Maddie from Wrestling with Classics. He was going to the event in Tennessee, and Ricky Steamboat was there, and he got the sign for me. But this was on my wall. I know the glare is going to be tough, so I do apologize. But here it is. You can see that. There we go. I know the glare is tough. But this is the, obviously both in Mid-Atlantic, the TV title and the United States belt, which you know is my favorite belt. Ricky Steamboat signed on the wall, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And so hopefully, too much glare. You see that? I'm going to send a better photo out on Twitter. But hopefully you have enjoyed this 32 minutes and change. We're going to probably hit about 34 minutes. Who cares? But this was an episode that I've been wanting to do for you guys. And I'm so glad that I was able to finally get these posters out there to you. Signed posters. A lot of them, I think the only one of these that I purchased was the Nick Bockwinkel, and that was for obvious reasons after he passed. But thank you again for supporting Wrestler Weekly. Just as a little disclaimer, as the founder and CEO of Wrestler Weekly, I just want to say how happy I am that we have created a wrestling community where we can talk about the wrestling mags, we can talk about the matches, we can talk about growing up in our families and how they tied together, and family bacon wrestling. It's not just a Richardson thing with Reggie and I. It is a community thing. If you have not picked up the book Family Bacon Wrestling, go out and buy it. I'm telling you, you will relate to it on a personal level. And that's really the point. I'm not making money off this book. Whatever you think that we're trying to get rich here, we're not. We're trying to share ideas. We're trying to grow our community. Back in early July, we decided to change the format and really cater to our roots. And you guys are our roots. I enjoy fans that are discovering it. Here's the thing. Look, I'm a New York Yankees fan. I was born in 1972. I was, in October of 77, I was getting ready to turn 5 when Reggie Jackson hit the 3 home runs in that World Series game. I was turning 6 in 78 when the Yankees went back-to-back. And so I wasn't alive in 1962. I was not alive in 61 when Maris hit the homers and hit 61. I wasn't alive, but I can tell you every guy that played on that baseball team, even guys coming out of the bullpen, on the bench, because I've done my research. And that's great things about wrestling. We have fans now that are, they're sending me messages. And these guys are like 20, 21, 22 years old. And their knowledge is fantastic. They're going back and they're researching, they're reading, they're watching matches. You know me, I'm not big on the shoot stuff. I like guys that watch the match and read some eyewitness things through programs or talk to other people that went to those events and could see some of those things. Look, I know it's kayfabe, but for us, it is a part of who we are and our childhood. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I just am so happy that we have created this and we can talk about things. And I have met so many people around the world. Australia, Nova Scotia, Japan, all over just unbelievable. The Middle East, even. So many different places where our fans are coming from. It's just crazy to think about that type of community, all associated with professional wrestling. And so again, thank you for supporting us. Check out Mike Leotis every Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern, Wrestler Weekly Live. Also, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Wrestler Weekly. T-shirts, ProWrestlingTees.com. The book is on Amazon, Family Bacon Wrestling. And don't forget, check out the articles that we've put out on 720wrestling.com. A big announcement coming soon, so stay tuned to everything Wrestler Weekly. Again, fans, until next time, so long for now.